welcome back to Rob's Funk and Junk podcast, episode number 36. Hope you're good. I hope you're well out there. I am just clearing the lurgy. I had the lurgy this week. I've been quite poorly. Poor me. Started on Sunday. Paul and I had a Boom and Twang retreat, our UK retreat, last weekend, so Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and I woke up Sunday morning feeling a bit crap, but I'm fine. I'll live, don't worry, I'll be fine. Went to the doctors, got some antibiotics, and it's but this is the first time I've not had my voice 2 octaves lower, so so the podcast is a little bit late this week. My voice was I sounded like Darth Vader for the week. I hope you've all had a great week out there. I hope everyone is well. Hope you've all had a great week of guitar playing and all that stuff. Thanks to everyone who checked in last week and watched the video on Nile Rodgers that I did. It wasn't really a video. It was a video on Nile Rodgers, but I was just discussing the greatness of the man. It was good. Yeah, thanks for everyone for watching that and commenting, and I'm glad you liked the video. And as you can tell, I'm a huge fan. So this week I've been thinking, whilst coughing and spluttering, about what to talk about, and I've kind of I was thinking about what I could talk about this week, and I was having a discussion with a good friend of mine, drummer Bob Knight, last night, and this came up. It sort of almost confirmed what I could discuss on today's episode. Hence why I'm going to call this "So You Want to Become a Session Musician or a Session Guitar Player." So I just thought I'd talk about what being a session guitar player looks like to me in 2024. This is something I kind of am, but starting out when I wanted to become a session musician, when I was a kid, it was I'd sort of read about all of the players that were sort of doing it at that time, and I realized that I kind of figured out that they were sort of doing sessions every day, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a studio making music or playing with bands out on the road every day. And by the time I got to an adult age, I realized that wasn't kind of in existence anymore. Those days had kind of gone. I know that in places like Nashville that probably happens. That's the place. If you wanted to become a session guitar player right now, that's the only place that I know of where there are players like, Rob McNally and Derek Wells and the great Tom Bukovac, plus huge amount of others that are getting to play in studios daily, probably working on different projects every week, 5 days a week or 6 days a week or whatever it is. But as a guitar player in the UK, that's not really how it works, or not that I know of. So it's led me to think about this subject. What does it take to be a session musician in 2024 in the UK? So I do actually get lots of questions about this. I know a lot of people on YouTube channels or Instagram or whatever say, "Oh, hi, I've had a load of questions about this," which is usually a way for them to have a subject brought up that they can talk about in a video. But before I ever did a YouTube video, and for years and years, ever since I've been doing this, I've had the question, and I've asked the question: how do I become a session musician? How do I break into the scene, whatever scene there is? I get emails about it a lot. I get it asked when I'm at doing talks at the music universities. And my answer is always the same. Now, I do get a lot of questions, a lot of emails and messages on my socials saying, "Hi, Rob, my name's blah, blah, blah. I'm a guitar player. I want to break into the session scene. If there's any work you can't do, can you pass it along to me?" Now, that's very cool, very, very admirable for people to sort of reach out in that way. But that is, in my opinion, not the way to do things. It's not the way I ever did it. I don't want to come off sounding mean saying this, because it's very hard not to sound mean. But that's just not the way it happens. I and no one else I know in this business would ever pass along a session work, touring work to someone they don't know. It just doesn't work like that. I've never heard of anyone getting a gig completely without them being known beforehand, either by some other musicians involved in the project or the producer. A session player never gets in unsolicited by, just sending an email to someone. It just doesn't work like that. We were talking about it yesterday with Bob. He said he gets emails all the time, saying, "Hi, I'm trying to break into to session work, and I've been Instagramming so-and-so artist and this artist, and no one's getting back to me." It's just because it just doesn't work like that. You're barking up the wrong tree if you think you're gonna. I know nowadays artists are seemingly really accessible because they have Instagram accounts, but they're not gonna. As far as I know, I've never seen it happen. They're not going to just receive a message from someone on social media saying, "Hi, I'm a guitar player. Can I come and play on your records, or can I come and do your tour?" It just isn't going to work like that. It's always going to be through someone they already know, someone that's been recommended by someone that they already know, or through an audition process, right? That's the only way I've seen it ever work. You have to be a trusted person. So that means and then you might ask, how do I become a trusted person? And the only way I've ever seen it work is by being out and about, playing all the time, right? Just getting yourself out there, going to open mic nights, going to, hearing, when you hear about auditions, if you can get involved and, being on an agent's books, that's kind of how it works. By playing, taking on gigs, even if it's with a function band or a club band, you're going to be working with lots of other musicians in that process, where you get to meet people and meet people in the right way. It's not a networking opportunity doing a gig, it's a gig. So anytime you get offered a gig, if you're starting out, my advice would be take it, whether it's terrible money, no money, or loads of money. Money shouldn't be the object of it. This is, please, this is just my opinion. It's an opportunity to play, and to play with people you don't necessarily know, and for you to develop your skills with those people. And that's how it worked for me. I worked with bands locally, and then because I was, and when I mean locally, I mean in this area, in the Cambridgeshire area where I live, I worked with an artist locally, and I got that gig because of word of mouth, because of other things I'd done locally. And then what happened was, I was working with this artist for about a year, perhaps, on and off, just doing lots of rehearsals and a few little gigs, all for free, pretty much for free. I can't remember ever getting paid. So I did have to have a day job to sort of keep me afloat whilst this was happening. And I was teaching guitar. But then what would happen is someone a player from a different area, and in this example, a drummer and a bass player came to do some gigs with this artist from out of town. They were from London, and we kind of hit it off, and then my number was given to them, and I would say, I'd say, look, if anything comes up where you know of someone who needs a guitarist, perhaps give me a call. And then thankfully they did, and then meant that I got involved in doing some gigs out of town in London. And then I got to hear about the open mic nights that were happening at the time, and the jam nights that were happening at the time. And I used to trail down into London weekly, just to go and be there, not necessarily even get up and play, just to go and be there and kind of check out the scene. And that was a good few years of doing that. And then, I was doing club gigs and bar gigs for next to nothing. It cost me just as much to get there as it did that I was getting paid, which meant I had to hold down a day job and teaching as well, just to make ends meet. And then eventually I got to meet lots of musicians, and it was done in the right way. It wasn't done by sort of cold calling people that I didn't know. It was kind of done playing with people and hopefully turning up with the right attitude, learning all the songs, and that's kind of how I broke into whatever the session scene was. I can link my sort of trajectory through playing with a couple of people, a handful of people, that meant that I then got recommended for other work. And that other work ranged from playing with a band called The Foundations that had some hits in the 70s, traipsing up and down the country in the back of a van, getting paid next to nothing 2 or 3 times a week. But along the way, I got to meet people that came in and out of that gig. The bass player couldn't make it, so another bass player would come in. The drummer couldn't make it, so another drummer could come in. That was a great way of meeting a load of musicians, some of which I work with now still, And this was a gig that I was doing 30 years ago. And then through meeting one drummer, that drummer then recommends me to a producer who I then get to work on a project with and become hopefully part of the team. Now, what I can tell you is working with, and when you get into the recording world, getting a session completely cold from a producer is never going to happen, right? You always need to be recommended by someone. And when someone is producing a record, there's a lot of pressure on that producer to deliver the record. So for them to invite someone into a studio session that they've never heard of and they don't know, or someone that they've just had a message on a DM from an Instagram account, that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of money involved. Well, there's a lot of money involved in driving the ship home and finishing the record. There's a lot of pressure on them to get it right, because you're only as good as your last production, kind of thing. So if they need a guitar player, they're probably going, and they don't know, they probably already have a list of guitar players that they work with. If they're successful producers, they're probably going to know all the people they need to know to get that job done. If they need a guitar player, bass player, drummer, keyboard player, they will probably have a list of 5 people for each instrument that they know they can trust and rely on. So it's only when that person, that guitar player, isn't available, or the next one isn't available, or the next one isn't available, that they will then reach out to the bass player in the project, or the keyboard player, or someone else, and say, listen, so-and-so can't make it for the session, this person can't make it for the session, or I need a guitar player that's got this can do this, that is when you hopefully are going to be the person that's recommended, right? I know this is a long tirade of my thinking process, and this is just my thinking process. Someone else might say a completely different thing to this. So then basically you say you've been the person that's recommended. You turn up and you have to leave your, this is through years and years of me doing this. You completely have to leave your ego at the door, right? You are working in service to that project at the time, right? You do to the best of your ability what they want you to do, right? You might have much better ideas than them. You might think that what they're asking you to do is absolutely terrible, but you should just do it with 100% commitment to get the project home, to drive the ship into the harbour. God, that's an analogy, isn't it? You have to be almost like you've got to develop your people skills to see when is the right time to make a suggestion, when's the right time to be quiet, when to crack jokes, when not to crack jokes, and then and only then you will find out whether you've done a good job by if that producer asks you back to do some more. That's the only way I've learned how to, I've realized that that's how it works. You end up creating a relationship with them, and you can hopefully become the person that they think of whenever anything is needed to be done. It's like if you're having some work done in your house, you want someone that's going to be reliable, that's going to come in and not waste time, not waste money, get the job done, and not be hard to deal with. So I did some work a few years back with the legendary bass player Lee Sklar. This isn't a name drop. It's just I'm not doing it to name drop. I was involved in a project, and it turned out he was the bass player on the project. And then maybe a year after we'd worked together, I got asked to do a project over in Los Angeles, and he was the bass player on the session. So I'm watching Lee like a hawk. Lee is an absolute legend. He's been in the industry for decades, at a high level and a low level. He does a lot of stuff. You only get to hear about the high level stuff. You don't get to hear about the low level stuff. But that guy is working constantly. And we were at a studio in LA for a week together, and I kind of watched him work. I was so fortunate to get to watch him work. And what I noticed about him was he just came in every day, said the right things, was quiet, joined in when there was a bit of fun happening, a bit of a laugh. But when it came down to business, he was on it every take, completely focused on it. And I think we did 4 or 5 days recording. And at the end of the day, he was like, he checked with the artist and the producer, is everything good? You happy? Everything good? And then he was out of there. Not in an unfriendly way, just like he just didn't outstay his welcome, and I thought that's really cool. He didn't, he was like, I'm going to get out of here because there's obviously still work to be done. I don't want to be in the way. There wasn't really a sort of long hang in the studio. He was just like, I'm going to get out of here. And I took a massive sort of notice of that. I took a lot of notice of that. Just how to be professional. He was always on time. My motto for years has been, be on time, be in tune, and don't be a dick. That's something that I've always lived by. Just being professional in this game, this session game, because it's a tough game. So so now to what it looks like being a session musician, a session guitar player in 2024. It's you can't, if you think you're going to be able to make a living just recording or just touring as a side person, it's very, very rare that you're going to be able to do that. I know that probably musicians did that back in the day, but now there's so little work to go around, and the work is so the pay is a lot less than it used to be. I won't go into that, but you know, we all know that streaming and all that kind of stuff has taken a huge chunk out of musicians' incomes. Even when you're playing on like record company, major label releases, the pay is not what it used to be. And I can talk about that later in another video, perhaps. But it means you have to have many, many fingers in many, many pies these days if you need to make a living out of being a musician. So that is, for one thing, for me, you know, even though I've been involved in successful tours and nice, you know, nice selling records, when I started out touring with anyone, actually, when I was on the road touring, you know, I might be on the road touring. So Jamiroquai, for example, we would tour for pretty much 2 years on and off. We'd make an album, which would take a year or a year and a half, and then we would be on the road for 2 years. Now, when I say you're on the road touring for 2 years, you might be away for 3 weeks, come home for 2 weeks, away for a month, come home for another 2 weeks, away for 4 days, be home for a month. It wasn't constant touring back in those days, and that seems to be what happens with a lot of artists these days. You know, the longest I've ever been away with Jamiroquai was 2 months. But what I did, because what happens is if you're away for that amount of time, your phone can stop ringing when you're at home. Everyone assumes you're away all the time. So any gig that come in, and I have to say it, I don't mind saying this, I'm not proud, any wedding gig, any little pub gig that came in, any session that came in that I could fit in between those breaks, I would do. I would recommend you, if you want to be a successful musician, I would take any work that comes in, even if it's really low pay. This is just the way I've done it. I'm not telling you to go out and work for nothing. Please don't think that. But I would always look at the big picture of, I get home on a Thursday from tour and there's a gig on the Saturday. And yes, I might be knackered and I might not feel like doing it. I would always do it. I still do it now. I'm 52 years old. I still do it now because, well, one, I really want to play. That's what I want to do. I live to play the guitar. I love it. But if you keep saying no to gigs, that's when the next person who's waiting in line for your gig will take that gig. And it's not being a selfish thing. It's not. I'm not doing it to stop other people getting work. I'm doing it because I need the work and I want to work. So, and if I can't do the gig, I have a handful of guitar player friends that I can then go, listen, I can't make this gig, but so-and-so can do it, you know. And that's what happens. You get a group of people that you work with alongside, even though they might be playing the same instrument as you, that are trusted, and they're going to turn up, do a really good job for you whilst you're not there, and hopefully not steal your gig. You know, that's what you want. You don't want someone to go and run off with your gig, which is, you know, is not a cool thing. Unless someone gets fired. If I was to get fired, then I completely understand why someone's going to take the gig. But I would always take gigs in between touring things, because if you say no more than twice, they're probably going to move on to someone else, you know, and that's fine as well. You know, everyone's got to work. But it just means that no gig is too small, really, for me. I just love playing. I go out and play as much as I possibly can because, one, I get to play. Two, I get to meet new people. Last night I did a gig in London at Langan's, my regular gig. The new bass player, I'd never worked with him before. His name was Dana. He was amazing. Really, really great player. Cool guy. And yeah, you get to play with someone new. Now, I'm not saying that means that he's going to remember my name and go, "Oh, Rob, I've got this tour coming up, and that they need a guitar player, and do you want to do it?" That doesn't happen to me as much nowadays as it used to happen, but that is how it happens. You meet someone on a gig. Maybe 3 months later, if you get on and you personality-wise you get on, that's why you're going to get a call, and then you take it from there. But I don't know whether this is helpful in any way to anyone, but this is just my thinking of it. I was kind of thinking about this all week. How do I explain this stuff? One little story I kind of think of that stuck in my mind through, that happened in the last couple of years. And I talk about this quite a lot when I go to colleges. And it was a young guitar player called me up once. I was away with the band. I was away in Spain or Italy or something. And I got a message saying, "Rob, can I message you? I've got a quick something I want to ask." So I took the call. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know this guy. He's young guitar player, really good. And he said, "I've got this predicament." I was like, "Okay, explain." And he said, he's been working with a female artist for a while, up and coming singer-songwriter." I was like, and I knew he'd been doing this. And he said, "We've been offered a support gig with a large artist, like a really sort of famous artist, a band it was actually." I was like, "Wow, amazing, that's great." He said, "Oh, well, the problem is they're not offering to pay me anything for it. The artist that he was working with, the female artist, wasn't going to pay him." And I was like, "Okay, obviously that's a problem?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's a problem for me." And I said, "Okay, well, when is your gig? When is the gig?" And he said, "Oh, it's like a week on Sunday. It's like a week and a half away, but on a Sunday." I said, "What time are you on in the afternoon?" And he said, "Oh, it's probably about 3 p.m. or something." And it was at some stadium somewhere, like it's a big gig. So that tells you sort of the league that the main act was. It was a big stadium gig, and I think they were doing a couple of nights there. So I said, "Well, I can probably imagine that this support act who's on at 3 p.m. doing an acoustic duo, she's singing, he's going to be playing acoustic guitar. I can pretty much imagine she will not be getting paid any money at all for that. That's a support gig is a way for you to put yourself in front of a load of people that will never have heard of you before, right? So that's an opportunity gig." And he was like, yeah, but it's such and such stadium. I can't remember the name. I think it was in Birmingham. I'm not sure. "It's such and such stadium. Surely I should be getting paid." I said, "Well, yeah, by rights, yeah, you should be getting paid, but she's not getting paid. This is a venture for them." I was like, "How invested are you in being on this journey with this artist?" He's like, "Well, I should get paid." I said, "Well, okay, put it this way. Are you doing anything that day?" And he said, "No, it's a Sunday." I said, well, you can either be sat at home doing nothing all day, and someone else can be doing the gig instead of you, or it could be you doing it. And this is an opportunity for you to play in the stadium for the first time ever, which will be amazing, to a load of people." I said, "But also, you're going to be standing in the vicinity of a lot of other people who are also in your industry, you know, trying to be in your industry. And if they were to hear you play and you did a great job, who knows, 3 years down the line, you might be playing in some bar and that one of the people that are there goes, oh, that's that guy. Oh, I remember you from doing that gig. Oh, actually, I'm just working with this new band and we're going in the studio and I've been put in charge of this thing. Do you want to perhaps see if anything can happen? So I said that it can either be you doing it or someone else doing it. And I know which one I'd rather be. I'd rather be the person that's there that could possibly be involved. You know, that's what I mean when I say always look at the big picture. Now, I know, I definitely look at all of the stuff that's going on in Nashville, and that's such a vibrant scene. Everyone's playing all the time, or so it seems. They're all doing sessions all the time. I would love to be in that environment. You know, that's what I craved. I never moved to that sort of area. I didn't sort of do that. I always stayed here, in the UK. That's not here. That scene doesn't happen here. I don't know of anyone who's doing 5-6 sessions a week. There probably are people that are, especially like string players and orchestral players. There's a lot of that stuff going on. A friend of mine, Adam Goldsmith, he does a lot of record guitar playing. He does a lot of the film sessions and a lot of jingle sessions, a lot of other stuff. He's an amazing reader. He gets booked for those kind of sessions, plus a lot of other stuff. But the frequency of sessions isn't that huge, so it means you have to do a lot of other stuff, a lot of wedding gigs, a lot of bar gigs, teaching, guitar teaching, being a gear demonstrator online, being a YouTuber. There's a lot of other stuff involved in being a session musician. You can't, or I can't just survive just being a session musician. I have to do any gigs that come along, and I do it freely. I want to do as many gigs as possible, and I can pick and choose a little bit nowadays. I can't do everything, but that's how I've survived. It's survival in this game. It's it's still the best job in the world. I absolutely love it. I've had a couple of sessions this week. I love it. I sit in my room and I get to make music, even remotely. It's good fun. I get to sort of do things on people's records, and I love it. Absolutely love it. So I don't know if any of this is just my advice. Don't beat me up if you think I'm wrong. But to anyone aspiring to be a musician, a session musician, a side person, a recording musician, this is just my version of it. And I'm sure that everyone else has their version of it. And I'm going to listen to that too. But this is just how I've managed to survive and navigate this business. If you're getting into it because you want to be really, really wealthy, this isn't the business to get into. I think people think that working musicians earn an absolute fortune. I've always thought of this game, and it's always been like this since I've started doing it. It's feast and famine. There's a lot of feasting. There's also a lot of famine. Work, can dry up, which means you have to diversify and do other things to create your own work. Record company fees for sessions are a hell of a lot lower than they used to be. I can remember a time where you would get, I don't mind saying this, I don't mind divulging this, you could earn up to 700, and I know it was probably more than that before I started doing it, but I remember a time where I'd be able to charge up to £700 a song when I was working on a record for a major artist. Now, you're lucky of recent times if you earn £400 a day of recording, and that's for doing as many songs in a day as you possibly can. And that isn't a hard and fast thing. It's different for every project you do. Touring rates are, if you're working for the really top, if you're working for someone like John Mayer, I'm sure everyone's really well paid. But if you're working for some of the other, I won't name names, but some very, very huge artists who sell out massive stadiums. Some of the rates of pay that I've heard that the musicians are getting is like, wow, okay, it's not what it should be. I don't want to go too much into that, but so I would say if you want to be a session musician, go into it with your eyes fully wide open and work your backside off. Be on time, be in tune, and don't be a dick. It's really important, and if you're in it for that, if you're in it to make music and play and have a great time, you're going to have a great life. Cool, I'm getting deep. It's really deep. But yeah, that's my advice. If anyone's got any comments, cool. I've been prattling on for 40 minutes now. Anyone's got any comments? Drop me something below in the comment section, or drop me an email at robsfunkandjunk@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry about my croaky voice. I've not coughed as much as I thought I was going to cough. Stay safe out there, everybody, and I will hopefully see you next week. Bye.